If you're between 55 and 70 and you've saved real money in your 401ks and IRAs, there's a 5 to 10 year window in your life where the IRS quietly takes their hands off your income, and almost everyone wastes it. They retire, their income drops, their tax bill drops, and they think, great, I finally caught a break, and they do nothing. Then, when they hit their 70s, required minimum distributions kick in. Social Security is fully on, and their tax bracket jumps. Medicare premiums creep up, and they end up paying more tax than when they were working. In this video, I'm going to show you when that window usually opens, why it is often the lowest tax bracket of your adult life, and how a simple Roth conversion strategy can legally move money away from the IRS and towards your family. And finally, I'll show the 3 mistakes that really ruin this opportunity. Let me start with showing you the window first, and we'll use real numbers. Then I'll give you a free way to see your own window on your own time. Now, when you think about your income over your lifetime, you can look at first your working years. This is when you receive your salary, your bonuses. Maybe you have business income. And you're probably in the 22, 24, maybe 32% federal tax bracket. Then you retire around 62, 65, and the paycheck stops. Maybe you haven't turned on your Social Security income yet, or you might have turned it on early and it's a smaller amount. You might have a small pension and some dividends. What this means in a lot of cases is that your taxable income drops, and it drops hard. Now, RMDs, they don't start until 73. So there's a stretch of years in your 60s that the IRS is not forcing money out of your retirement accounts. For a lot of people, that valley between your retirement start date and age 73, that's when you have a 10 or 12% tax bracket. And for some people, it's the lowest tax bracket that they've seen since their 20s. Now let's do a quick example just to make this real. Let's take a married couple who are both 64 and retired. They show a $48,000 taxable income. Now the top of the 12% bracket for a married couple is in the mid-90s, and it varies year by year. So they've got roughly 40 to 50,000 of space in that 12% tax bracket. If they do nothing, the space disappears. If they use it, they can convert 40 to 50,000 per year from an IRA to a Roth IRA at 12% instead of paying 22 to 24% later when RMDs and full Social Security income benefits all stack up. In this case, if they do that Roth conversion strategy over 8 to 10 years, they've quietly shifted hundreds of thousands of dollars from taxable later at whatever rate Congress decides to tax-free for the rest of their life. Now that's what we call the window, and it decays every year that you ignore it. The opportunity gets worse with time. Now what we just talked about is the concept which we call a Roth conversion window, but your numbers are not their numbers. So to make this useful, you need to see your window based on your situation. And to that point, I built a free calculator, and you can find it at springsadvisor.com. You just look for the tab that says Tax Calculator. Now you can either go to springsadvisor.com, or there is a link in the description below this video. And here's what it does in about 2 minutes. First, you enter your age, you put in your traditional 401k and IRA balances. Then you put in your estimated Social Security income and your tax filing status, whether it be single or married. That software, that app on my website, it'll project what happens at age 73 when RMDs stack on top of Social Security. And most importantly, it shows your conversion window. That is, how many years you realistically have to move your money on your terms before the IRS starts dictating the schedule. Now, if you go to that app, there's no login, there's no email wall, it's just numbers you can see clearly. It solves one narrow problem really well, and it's designed that way on purpose. Now, if you want this video to really hit home, pause and go to springsadvisor.com, look for that tax calculator, and run your numbers, and then come back. Everything I'm about to show you will feel a lot less abstract when you're staring at your own numbers and your own brackets. Now let's talk about what is a Roth conversion. A Roth conversion at its foundation is actually quite simple. You're going to move money from a traditional IRA or 401k to a Roth IRA. Whatever amount you move, that amount shows up as income for this year, and you pay tax on that income now. And then from that point on, the growth and withdrawals from the Roth, they're tax-free and there are no RMDs. However, it's important to point out the strategy is not to convert everything all at once. The strategy is to fill your current tax bracket on purpose. Now let's go back to our couple. They have income without Roth conversions at $48,000 a year. And they have the ability to top off their 12% tax bracket, which is in the mid $90,000 range. So they have about $40,000 to $50,000 of room inside of that 12% tax bracket. If they convert the $45,000 from their IRA to the Roth this year, they pay roughly 12% federal tax on that conversion. That $45,000 is now inside the Roth, and any future growth, it's tax-free. And next year, they can do it again, and again, and again. Over 9 years, that's about $400,000 shifted from future taxable assets to future tax-free at a discount rate. I do want to point out that during that conversion process, they use the same investment strategy with the same market risk. What has changed is that we're using a different tax strategy. Now let's talk about why paying tax now can be the cheaper option in the long term. And here's the mindset shift that most people never make. Every dollar in your traditional IRA is not fully yours. If your future marginal tax rate is 24%, about 24 cents of every dollar is already the government's. You're just holding it for them. So the real questions are, when do I pay those taxes? At what rate do I pay? And on how big of a balance am I going to pay those taxes? Now, scenario A, you convert $1 today at 12%. You pay 12 cents, move 88 cents into the Roth, and you let it grow tax-free. Scenario B, you leave the $1 in the IRA, and then over 10 years, maybe it grows to $1.80. Then RMDs and other income pushes you into the 24% bracket. Now the IRS wants 24% of $1.80, which is about 43 cents. Same original dollar, but more than 3 times the tax. That's the compound growth of a tax problem. The families who understand this, they don't convert because they like paying taxes. They convert because they'd rather pay less tax on a smaller balance early and on purpose. Then there's the issue around the survivor tax problem. For couples, there's another layer that nobody likes to think about. At some point, one of you will outlive the other. And when this happens, one Social Security check disappears. Your filing status will change from married filing jointly to single, and then the standard deduction drops and the tax bracket compresses. Problem is, if the surviving spouse is sitting on a big traditional IRA with mandatory RMDs, those forced withdrawals, they can now land in much higher brackets than when the two of you were married. Same accounts, lower household income, higher tax rate. Money in Roth IRAs, it doesn't do that. Roths have no RMDs. They create no taxable income. It doesn't trigger higher brackets or Medicare surcharges, and it doesn't cause more of your Social Security income to be taxed. One of the best financial gifts couples can give each other is a series of smart Roth conversions while you're both alive and both in relatively low brackets. That's not morbid, that's love expressed in a spreadsheet. Okay, now let's talk about 3 mistakes that kill this Roth conversion strategy. Mistake number 1 is converting too much in 1 year such that you empty the IRA. It may sound decisive, but if you blow past the 12 or 22% bracket into the 24 to 32% bracket without a plan, you've probably overpaid. The goal is to systematically fill, not smash through your tax bracket. Mistake number 2 is ignoring this thing called IRMA. You see, large Roth conversions can increase your Medicare Part B and D premiums if your income crosses certain thresholds. Now, it doesn't mean don't convert. It means you factor IRMA into the math and make an informed choice as to whether it's worth it or not. And finally, mistake number 3 is waiting for the perfect time. The perfect time is the low income window. It doesn't get better over time. Every year you delay, your IRA balance usually grows, which means your future RMD grows and your remaining window shrinks. In practice, I've never met anyone who did thoughtful conversions in their early 60s and regretted it. I've met plenty who have waited until their 70s and felt stuck. Okay, now let's zoom out and summarize. First, there's a window between retirement and RMD age where your taxable income may be the lowest it's been in decades. In that window, you have a choice. And that choice is over how much income you show the IRS. Using Roth conversions to fill your bracket on purpose during those years, that can dramatically cut your lifetime tax bill and protect a surviving spouse from tax bracket shock. Most people never even hear this explained. They just drift into their 70s and take whatever tax bill shows up. Now, if you want to see your window, go to springsadvisor.com and click on the Tax Calculator tab. It's free, it takes a couple of minutes, and it will at least tell you whether this is a big opportunity or a small one. If you want help running the full strategy, how much to convert, which years, how it interacts with your retirement income and estate goals, well, that's what I do. My name is Zach Poitra, and I'm a Series 65 licensed fiduciary in Colorado Springs. I specialize in creating retirement income that you can count on. I offer no-cost retirement income review, where we can look at your tax picture, your conversion window, your income sources, and how they all fit together. You'll leave with a clear picture of where you stand and what your options are. No pressure. Now, if this content was helpful, please like and subscribe. I put out weekly content on retirement income, Roth conversion strategies, dividend investing, and estate planning specifically for people in the decade before and after retirement. And if you know someone who retired recently and hasn't heard about any of this, send them this video because their window is already closing. With all that said, see you next week.